We should never take impeachment off the table. We should never take, where we see law breaking, we should never take accountability off the table.
This nonsense from like AOC that he should be impeached is just absurd. Absurd. There's no... Okay, get back to me when you've read the Constitution or get a law degree, because...
Megyn Kelly's shockwave struck so abruptly and forcefully that it seemed to turn the entire stage upside down. Navigating the aftermath was difficult. It was like watching a full-scale explosion play out in real time. Usually, AOC is the center of attention, but in this case, she was able to start a fire with just a paper fan and a small gesture. What followed was so surprising that everyone had to reevaluate their viewpoint. You will undoubtedly have a whole new perspective of AOC after this contentious discussion.
Absolutely no ground to impeach the president. He 100% was within his constitutional authority and his congressionally authorized authority to do what he did on Saturday. Okay, but as for whether it's a good idea, that's a debate we should be having. And look, you know, if we could get congressional approval of the specific action, fine, I'm okay with that too. If you want to bring it to Congress, go ahead and see how that goes. I don't think it's necessary.
Megyn Kelly pushed AOC front and center and put her in the spotlight. The resulting altercation was far from amicable. A participant who was obviously unprepared for the severity of the situation entered the fray. Kelly carefully focused on AOC, revealing minor flaws in her otherwise perfect exterior. She meticulously destroyed the masterpiece on exhibit with an unrelenting, almost disorganized intensity, similar to a kid ripping into brand new wallpaper with scissors.
AOC and see what she has to say.
Reaction on what's going on with Elon Musk and President Trump on Twitter right now.
Oh man, the girls are fighting, aren't they? I think this breakup we've been seeing a long time coming, but we'll see what the impacts are of it legislatively.
Okay. You're so cool referring to them as the girls. She's above it all, Ben. That's what she's trying to telegraph. You see, she's the adult in the room, the one out there who does a preacher accent, and she leans into her fake Latina accent. And like, she's the adult.
If you were interested in this heated takedown, don't forget to click the subscribe button. Megyn Kelly's keen observation caused AOC to change quickly. She moved from being a vibrant Instagram Live star who was sipping wine, thanking her fans, and smiling to someone who appeared to have just noticed the Wi-Fi password had changed.
True radical left, who's gone beyond all the identity issues. I mean, don't get me wrong. The person I'm going to show you is 100% wrapped in all of them, but like genuinely believes the Hitler fascist stuff, like is distraught because they really think Hitler just got reelected. Most of them were just pretending, but then there are the ones who genuinely believe it, like AOC.
We are about to enter a political period that will have consequences for the rest of our lives. Donald Trump has talked about turning the military on U.S. citizens that he deems his domestic political enemies.
This is AOC's unvarnished reality. Her strategy is based almost completely on intuition, with minimal support from specific plans or data. Her TikTok presence is now characterized by exaggerated gestures that draw attention in a society that frequently overlooks more in-depth policy conversations. Her ability to transform a 30-second film into something that feels like a combination of a TED Talk presentation and a Broadway spectacle draws audiences in more than the content.
Has been out there on this, I don't know if it's campaign trail, I don't know what we're calling it, but this like Fight the Oligarchy tour with Bernie Sanders, from which, you know, venue to venue, she travels first class, sipping her champagne, you know, in the first class cabin as the losers and plebs walk by to coach. They're the ones she's really fighting for. And she's decided to ramp up her anti-Trump rhetoric in a way she's done before, but that could be deeply problematic for her if Trump actually decides to pay some attention.
But Megyn doesn't waste any time on pointless showmanship. Her incisive accuracy has the power to cause even the most audacious politicians to reevaluate their entire strategy, which is precisely what occurred in this case. AOC entered with the expectation that her signature style, grand gestures, ferocious anger, and maybe a dramatic statement likening climate change to a credit card bill would win the day. Megyn would have none of it. She gradually undermined AOC's performance until the lawmaker appeared less like an experienced politician and more like a student struggling through a book report. AOC's claims are disproved more quickly than glitter in a washing machine by facts, sharp reasoning, and unrelenting focus. There were no weak spots because every strike landed precisely. The audience was enthralled rather than amused. Megyn's cool, collected dismantling of AOC revealed its facade, much like attempting to put together IKEA furniture without directions. Most significantly, Megyn made AOC seem just human, in stark contrast to her self-proclaimed image as funny, self-assured, and fashionable in pricey sneakers.
Today that AOC may be getting ready to run for president, that her team is looking, and I know you've said she could potentially do it, but her team is looking at maybe Senate. Chuck Schumer is, I think, going to be 78 when he runs for re-election. That's really old, and the Democrats seem to get that now. Or she might just go for president. And at the same time, this happened today. The Republicans in the House introduced a resolution to honor Charlie Kirk. It condemns the murder and
in contrast to AOCC's well-cultivated image, even a well-executed Apple product introduction would appear amateurish. But Megyn saw straight through it. She let the world see all of her imperfections. AOCC's perfect performance of "I'm the Future" felt less like fate and more like a badly practiced audition that somehow ended up on C-SPAN. It hit hard. Megyn was addressing a performance that no one else dared to question, not just policy criticism. As others gasped and analyzed her points, the pauses, the hand gestures, the timed emotional moments, she drew back the curtain. It was like finding the Wizard of Oz hidden behind the smoke and mirrors as you watched it happen. There was no turning back once it was out. The responses were divided. Half of the audience froze while the other half chuckled. Although the illusion had been dispelled, a Brooklyn barista allegedly maintained that AOC was still fantastic. Megyn demonstrated that the entire deed had been revealed, not just the emperor's lack of clothing. There was no better time to do it. Megyn's attack destroyed the underpinnings of AOC's meticulously crafted image in a time of influencer politics where viral moments are frequently confused with real change.
Of course he's lying and abusing and manipulating the stock market too. When he talks about rapists and criminals, he should look in the mirror.
Clearly saying that Donald Trump is a racist. Rapist. She also thinks he's a racist. He's all the ists. But here, she's in deep trouble because he was not found liable for rape. And George Stephanopoulos just had to pay ABC some $15 million to President Trump to settle a defamation.
Megyn called her out, and it hit her like a ton of bricks. Political jazz in its purest form. Only sincere clapbacks have weight. Everything else is merely noise. The sting came down hard. AOC probably believed she could spin things the conventional way, which includes using a few hashtags, playing the victim, and rallying her fans. This round, however, was unique. How often do politicians get held responsible for their actions instead of their policies? Megyn knew the solution. She took advantage of AOC's biggest asset, her attention-grabbing skills, and made them a burden. AOC's theatrics, which had once been intriguing, now seemed excessive and almost desperate. Furthermore, the quickest way to lose political credibility is to become desperate. It was impossible to ignore by the end. The so-called voice of the people was suddenly overextending with each microphone grab, akin to realizing that your favorite action hero has always depended on a stunt double.
There's AOC, who said the following.
And beliefs were ignorant, uneducated, and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans. Far from the working tirelessly to promote unity, unquote, asserted by the majority in this resolution.
Then she voted no. She refused to join in the resolution. Consequences to her politically for doing that?
I would love to have her run for president of the Democratic side. It's a contrast, right? What you see is what you get. If that's what you think can lead this country, is that where your values are? Is that what you think will continue to promote American freedom and liberty?
True shock is that even Megyn wasn't performing at her best. She drank coffee on a laid-back Tuesday and analyzed a politician as though it were a simple warm-up. It would be a gleeful political demolition rather than an interview if she really went all in on AOC. The internet explodes when Megyn takes center stage. Memes take over timelines, late-night programs struggle to come up with gags, and last-ditch efforts to destroy evidence fall flat. At that moment, AOC's only option would be to go into full-on performance mode, complete with jazz hands. Then the curtain fell heavily. As the illusion broke, many people stopped to wonder, wait, was this all just a show? The most surprising thing to everyone was how fast the atmosphere changed following Megyn's meticulous analysis of AOC just before she was seen as invincible. The internet's golden emblem apparently impervious to mistakes.
This is relevant is because a congresswoman who you may know as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been telling us for years that she is from the Bronx. And recently she had a fight with President Trump over tweet, text, truth, whatever. And she played tough and said, "Oh, don't you mess with me. I'm a Bronx girl. And we eat Queens boys for breakfast," because that's where Trump was raised, in the Queens. And respectfully, AOC. Well, that's real cute, except she only lived in the Bronx until she was age.
Even when AOC stumbled through policy issues, twisted metaphors into chaos, or drew wild analogies about wealthy eating planets, the audience might have cheered as if she had just closed a Broadway finale. But Megyn wasn't present to applaud. The room was awkward and tight once she broke the illusion. Performance politics is a straightforward reality. For an act to be effective, the audience must believe it. Megyn was surgically precise in exposing each string. Imagine AOC entering one of her hallmark speeches, her wide eyes, dramatic pauses, and sweeping hand gestures directing a secret orchestra. It usually enthralls. This time, as Megyn demonstrated the technique underlying the magic, every motion felt practiced, even robotic. When you figure out the trick, it becomes embarrassing rather than spectacular. Control is the cornerstone of AOC's brand, and this was immediately apparent. It determines the impact, message, and tone of each motion and look, and Megyn exposed it all.
Of her childhood, 1 through 12th grade, in Yorktown Heights, which is Westchester. And by any measure, it is richer, nicer, and more white collar than the Bronx, with all due respect to my friends in the Bronx. She's pretending to be a Bronx girl because she wants this to be part of her origin story, the same way as she wants now to be called Alexandria Ocasio.
Even when AOC stumbled through policy issues, twisted metaphors into chaos, or drew wild analogies about wealthy eating planets, the audience might have cheered as if she had just closed a Broadway finale. But Megyn wasn't present to applaud. The room was awkward and tight once she broke the illusion. Performance politics is a straightforward reality. For an act to be effective, the audience must believe it. Megyn was surgically precise in exposing each string. Imagine AOC entering one of her hallmark speeches, her wide eyes, dramatic pauses, and sweeping hand gestures directing a secret orchestra. It usually enthralls. This time, as Megyn demonstrated the technique underlying the magic, every motion felt practiced, even robotic. When you figure out the trick, it becomes embarrassing rather than spectacular. Control is the cornerstone of AOC's brand, and this was immediately apparent. It determines the impact, message, and tone of each motion and look, and Megyn exposed it all.
Everyone knew her as Sandy Cortez when she was growing up, and her lies are coming to the fore. So, among other things, Benny Johnson, who's hilarious, and he's a great Twitter follow and has a great show, went to Yorktown Heights just to take a look and to talk to some folks there about AOC and what Yorktown is like and so on. And now some of her schoolmates, separate and apart from Benny, are weighing in on her claim.
However, Megyn didn't celebrate her win. She just sat back and watched the mayhem, maybe drinking her coffee like a queen. Strike once, and the ripple takes care of the rest. That's the appeal of a flawless takedown. The videos went around and around, a rush of memes.
It's not necessarily fourth place. This is just, I'm going to start with as the fourth possibility, but I've got 4 total, and you'll decide what order they go in. I'm going to kick it off with AOC. Okay. Her real name is Sandy Ocasio. This is what she went by her entire life, Sandy Ocasio. And only when she decided to run for office did she decide to suddenly become Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and lean into her Puerto Rican history, where her mother was born in Puerto Rico, but her father was born in New York City. And she decided to tell us sob stories about how she's from a poor family and she was living, paycheck to paycheck. Meanwhile, she was raised in a Tony part of Westchester called York.
The memes were the clincher. Subtleties are lost on the internet, which devours humor whole, and Megyn provided a feast. Circus music accompanied AOC's dramatic hand-wave videos. The caption said, "Oscar-worthy drama, zero policy," and every extended pause turned into an unpleasant silence. Credibility is not only harmed once a performance is digested by the internet, it is permanently roasted, wrapped, and preserved. All of a sudden, it felt forced, Each pause appeared to be staged. Each statement seemed more like a rehearsed audition monologue than it did like politics. After that, everything fell apart. The meticulously constructed image of AOCC was destroyed. Megyn remained the cool observer who had revealed the illusion while her admirers rushed to mend it. Even the long protective media eventually admitted what they had surreptitiously suspected. The wires and stage machinery were clearly visible, and the performance lacked impact. Megyn was the only one brave enough to perform the demolition, and the deed had been exposed.